Hey there, Kenneth French of Vast Voice, telling business secrets to entrepreneurs. We're very, very happy you stopped by. Either you're going to watch this or listen to this because you want to take your business to the next level. You're probably an entrepreneur who's either just starting out or you've been around for quite a while and you want to take your business to the next level. You're probably a real estate investor, maybe even a real estate agent, maybe a professional or of some sort, professional advisor of some sort. And well, you are stopping by because you need some valuable advice from one of the top industry leaders there is. Anyway, thank you very much. Once again, Kenneth French, Vast Voice, telling business secrets to entrepreneurs. Really glad you stopped by.
You want to expand your business? One way of doing that is with press. How about this? Jeremy Knauff is the expert on press, media, etc., and that's going to blow up your business. Jeremy, what's up, buddy?
A little bit of everything, brother. Good to see you.
I like that press, huh? You know, I'm going to tell you, I got to admit this. I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but I used to not think expanding your business doing marketing press made sense. I know I'm an idiot, but now I know. I've learned, I've righted my wrong. So you're going to be here to help us add some value to the entrepreneurs who are out there. And I know you can add value, you know, a thing or two about press, media, etc.
Awesome, man. I will tell you, there are many people out there that I would describe as idiots. You are not one of them.
So tell us a little bit about, add a piece of value to a business owner right off the bat. Let's not beat around the bush. Give me one piece of added value element that would help our people.
All right, let's see. I will give you this. One of the biggest impacts you can have in your business is to develop authority status, because what that's going to do is it's going to help you cut through all the bullshit. You know, when you're seen as a recognized authority in your industry, you don't have to go through that dog and pony show to convince somebody that you're the person that can solve their problem.
All right. Give me how do I do that really quick? How do I do that?
So it comes down to a few different things. Getting featured in the media is a key part of that because there is that third party validation, which that kind of comes from our evolution as humans, right? When, the caveman would see the other cavemen eating fruit off this particular bush, they knew that it was safe. So they would go and they would eat it, right? The same applies to when you see somebody featured in a major magazine like Entrepreneur or Forbes or Inc. You assume that that person has been vetted. You assume that that person is qualified, that they know what they're talking about, that they're an expert. And so this is why getting featured in the media plays such a big role in developing that authority status. But we also have to build a strong personal brand. And all of this is kind of like this symbiotic environment, right? If you have a strong personal brand, that helps you get featured in the media. Getting featured in the media helps reinforce your personal brand. And so it all kind of works together. But that's kind of the situation in the big picture.
I've talked to some of your clients and people you've even been nice enough to just provide free advice, and they've said you're the man. So what is it that makes you the man that is so good at putting people in front of the press, et cetera?
I would have to say that comes down to firsthand experience and kind of the way that I got into this in the first place.
Okay.
So, you know that I had a health crisis several years ago that almost killed me.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent about 2 years on my deathbed. That was loads of fun, let me tell you.
I'm sure. Loads of fun, yeah.
Yeah. But, when that first happened, I was running my company as a full service digital marketing agency. So we did, web design, SEO, social media, PR, everything. But when I had that health crisis and I basically disappeared from the world for 2 years, I was now a ghost. I was no different than some rando on Fiverr at that point because I was not active. I was not doing things. I was not being seen. So when I got off of my deathbed, I had to rebuild my entire personal brand, rebuild my authority status. So I'm very much an action taker. I didn't want to sit around and make a bunch of plans and strategize. I just kind of jumped into action. And when I did that, I started leveraging public relations along with some SEO and social media to put myself back on the map. And when I did that, it blew up so big and so fast, way beyond anything I had done before. And, sometimes we get in the trenches and we get so busy with what we're doing, we don't really see what's right in front of us. And that's kind of what happened to me there because I had this happen. And for about the next year, I just continued business as usual, full service agency, continuing to do that side of things. And about a year after that, I realized, this is incredibly powerful. I went from being a nobody to being back on top of the world in record time. And, there's so many great people in our circle who are amazing at what they do. They're really focused on bringing tremendous value to their clients. And then you've also got these other, kind of the internet marketing bros, right? The guys who don't really give a shit. They're just out there hyping themselves up to make as much money as possible. And they don't really care if they bring real value to their clients. So what I wanted to do was elevate those people who are really focused on bringing real value. And in the process, also drown out some of these scumbags who don't really care. So it was a double win for me. And that was when we pivoted to focusing entirely on PR.
I understand. I totally get it. By the way, this is Val's Voice telling business secrets to entrepreneurs. We're hanging out with Jeremy Knauff, who is the media guru. You like that? PR guru, press guru, whatever you want to call it. So wait a minute. First, I always forget, how do people get a hold of you if they're interested in learning a little bit more about what you do, the resources you have, first of all?
Man, I am easy to get a hold of. If you Google my name, I'm going to come up everywhere for like probably the first 10 pages in Google. I show up in all the AI tools. I'm all over the place. I'm not hard to get a hold of. Spartanmedia.com is our website. But yeah, you can look me up pretty much anywhere and I will pop up. I mean, this is what I do for a living. So of course I pop up everywhere.
You better. And how do we spell your name, by the way?
Knauff.
Jeremy, Jeremy, and then last name Knauff. Okay. All right. So let's say I'm a real estate. Let's just say I'm an agent. I'm in whatever, the Dallas, Texas. And let's say I'm making, I don't know, $250,000. I have a huge team under me of independent real estate agents. I want to get bigger. I have no press. I'm just starting to get a Google site, Google My Business or whatever they call it.
Right.
And I want to make a name for myself. I want to go from 250 to whatever, $1 million. Give me some thoughts. Give me a little bit of a strategic game plan.
Yeah. So a few of the things that you can do right off the bat, and this applies even if you're just brand new starting off. Focus on getting as many recommendations, right? On LinkedIn, on Google My Business, on everywhere that you can possibly get reviews talking about the value that you're bringing, right? So this is that third-party validation we talked about. It's not the press, but it's coming from your clients, and that carries a lot of weight. So this is really important for a lot of reasons. One is when it comes to your Google business profile, it's when somebody comes and they look you up, they're going to see all of these reviews. So if there's a ton of reviews talking about how amazing you are, they're more likely to use you as their agent. But then beyond that, let's say you are at the stage where you're now talking to journalists, you're trying to get featured. You know what they're going to do? They're going to Google you too. And they want to make sure that you're legit because look, if they feature somebody and they're using that person's advice in their articles and that advice is terrible and that's not a good person, then that hurts their career. So they want to make sure that you're legit. So if they go and they see a bunch of reviews, you are more likely to be cited in the articles when you're pitching them. So this is kind of tying into what I said before about how all this stuff ties together. All of it is intermingled. The other thing you can do is build a strong social media presence. So this isn't really about having a ton of followers. It doesn't really matter how many followers you have. What matters more is the engagement, because any idiot can buy a whole bunch of bot followers. And then next thing you know, you got 100,000 followers and every single post is like crickets. Nobody's commenting, nobody's liking it, nobody's doing anything on your social. And that's a bad look because that, even though there's not something inherently bad going on, the lack of activity makes them question your legitimacy, especially if you have a large follower count. So some good ways that you can do that is, as an agent, you've got a ton of people that you're working with all the time. You've got the title people, you've got the mortgage people, you've got home appraisers. Collaborate with all of them and engage on each other's social media. And now you guys create this environment where you're all helping support each other. Now, not only are they more likely to send you deals whenever they have opportunities, but there's more activity on your social media profile. That makes you look better to buyers and sellers. It also makes you look better to journalists. So those are some of the low-hanging fruit that you can pick right off the tree really quickly and easily.
And is that what you do? You help with that overall process of getting, I guess, their Google My Business site, getting communication going with whatever press. I mean, what do you do in that regard?
Well, what we do, and we've actually got, there's a little facet to this that you and I have not talked about yet. I'll fill you in on that in a second. But the core of our business is the services side. So we work with people who they're great at what they do, and that's what they focus on all day, every day. So we handle all of the behind the scenes stuff. We'll come in, we'll do a strategic plan. We're going to look at their whole online presence, evaluate everything, see where they're strong, see where they're weak, see what needs to be shored up. Give them actionable advice on the things that they handle. And then we handle the media side of it. So we'll go out there, we'll pitch them to journalists. They've got a great story, whatever it is, they've got their expertise. We will pitch journalists stories that are relevant for them to chime in on. And then a lot of times we also get, because of my relationships, I'll have journalists reach out to me and they'll be like, hey, I need an expert on XYZ. Who do you have? So a lot of times we get these opportunities that just kind of pop up, which we have to kind of spring into action and handle that really quickly. Now, for our clients in the real estate industry, we get a pretty good handle on how they communicate and what they know pretty quickly. So in a lot of cases, we can actually just respond for them, and they don't even have to take time away from their day to, type up a response, because who the hell has time to do that? And you're probably not going to say it very well to begin with, because that's not your expertise, right? You're technically proficient, but communicating that is often not your strength, whether you're an investor, whether you're an agent, whatever. So typically what I'll do is we will actually write the response, whatever we want that person to say to the journalist. We'll run it by the client just to make sure that everything is on point, because it has to be technically correct and it has to communicate that they want to be perceived as. So we'll send it to them. 90% of the time, there's no edits to it. They're like, yeah, this is great. Let's roll with it. And then we'll send it right back to the journalist. That makes the process really simple and really fast for the client. And we can capitalize on those opportunities as they come up.
So I'm kind of like offloading. If I'm a client of yours, I'm kind of like offloading some of my work. So I can, sell widgets, sell real estate, and have you guys do what you're good at.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I like that. All right. So, you've added some value. Thank you. So what are some things I like to ask this question. Give me one example of someone who you've maybe changed their life, as far as now you're doing PR for them or whatever the case is, and they were making $250,000. And now all of a sudden they're worth $1 million because of the cool PR you're doing. Now, let's call it a kind of a commercial. By the way, you're not getting paid for this. I'm not getting paid for this. I just want to add value. You know what I mean? To the people who are out there.
Yeah. So I've got a really fun story. Fun for me because I wasn't on the bad side of it when it all started. But we had a client that came to us. We've been working with this particular client for, I think, like 15, 16 years at this point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Great guy, great client. We've worked together forever. And at one point, it was the largest or the fastest growing franchise in the country. They did. Yeah, it's pretty big. And they did workplace drug testing. So they'd go out to like the FedExes and Amazon and DOD, even, like all kinds of different companies, and they would do the workplace drug testing so that they would have a safe work environment. Well, the original founder of the company made some promises that he couldn't quite keep to the franchisees. And things kind of deteriorated pretty quickly when all of that came to a head. And the guy who's my client now, he originally ran his own company. He ran a printing firm, and he had sold his printing firm and came to work as the chief marketing officer for that company.
Okay.
And right about this time, everything imploded. And all of the franchisees were pissed off at the owner. About 19 of them, I think it was, just left. They walked away. And, I don't know how much you know about franchising, but that FDD document, that's a 30-year term. So you have to pay royalties for 30 years. They all just walked away, and then they tried to organize a class action lawsuit. And yeah, it was bad. And the lawyer that they were working with, I don't like him, but I do respect him because he was pretty shady, but he was very effective. And what he did was he encouraged all of them to get online and start trashing the company. And so that resulted in about the first 4 or 5 pages of Google being all negative information about the company.
Oh, brutal. Okay.
Yeah.
Now we're talking. Okay.
Absolutely destroyed their reputation, which did 2 things. It stopped them from selling new franchisees, and it stopped them from doing business in general, right? People didn't want to work with them because of all this negativity that was out there. So they went from, it was a high, I think it was an 8-figure company. They were just churning money. I mean, basically just printing money.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that dwindled down to about 350K in revenue overnight.
Brutal. Yeah.
And so that's when we came into the picture, and we were helping to fix this problem. And because of the relationships there, the friend of mine who came to work as the CMO, he now had to step up as the CEO because everybody hated the current CEO, and there was no fixing that.
Mm-hmm.
Problem was, he had no experience in the industry, he had no connections, and he had no authority. He was just some guy off the street as far as any of them were concerned. And in reality, he was. But what we ended up doing was we turned him into an authority in that industry. So we leveraged public relations, and we got him featured all over the place. We got him guest contributor opportunities all over the place, speaking opportunities, and just blew this company up. And in the span of a few years, we took them from about 350K in revenue to over 8 million in revenue. And, now they're working with the DOD, they're working with the military. Well, DOD is military. They're working with NASA. They're working with like all kinds of government agencies. They were doing all of the drug testing for all of the sports organizations, NFL, NBA, MLB, all the major companies like Amazon and FedEx and UPS and whatnot. So like that's a hell of a turnaround story. And every bit of it came down to positioning him as an authority, right? Now, of course, during that time, he learned a ton about the industry. He, earned the respect as well because he was doing what he had to do and earning that respect. He also had a board position on two of the major industry associations, but complete turnaround story. And it all came down to leveraging public relations to put him in that position.
Nice. That's a good story. I mean, the listeners, viewers out there are going to like that. So here's another little question for you. So I'm assuming you do press releases, do you?
Yes.
Yeah. So it seems to me that, by the way, I love that story. That blows me away. That just shows how you can add some value. Well, I'm going to go back. So with AI nowadays, I mean, everything's bot oriented, fake or whatever. And it seems like if you have authoritative voice out there, you're going to get more and more business. So that, I guess that goes to that story. So press releases, to me, press releases are one of the best ways to get ROI in the marketplace. You just have to, I know it sounds crazy. I think if you write a good press release and it gets to the right people, your name is out there and you're the authoritative voice. I don't understand why more people don't do press releases. I've never understood that.
So there's a lot of nuance to that. For a period of time. Okay. So my view on press releases has changed several times throughout my career. Once upon a time, it was a great strategy because journalists would subscribe to the wire services. They would get these press releases and they would potentially write an article about it if it was well written and it was relevant to them. Then that kind of died off, and we got to a point where there's other platforms where it's better and easier to connect with journalists, and they could find a lot of stuff on social media. So they didn't really need that. So it kind of went away.
Okay.
And then it picked back up a little bit, mainly in the SEO world where people were using it for link building, right? You put out a press release, and then of course it goes out to whatever wire service, but then it gets resyndicated out to numerous other outlets, AP, Yahoo Finance, etc. So if you get a link in there, those links would count for your SEO efforts. Eventually, Google did away with that and stopped counting those because people abused it.
The do not follow list. Yeah.
That's what marketers do. We ruin things. So
it's all your fault, Jeremy. Yeah,
it is. But for a while, I had kind of written off press releases as essentially useless. Then I was talking with a friend of mine in the industry, and she's like, well, no, I still think they're useful. And here's why. We sat down and had a conversation. And I'm like, okay, I'll give it some merit. I'll try a few and see what I can make happen. So I still use them now, but I take a slightly different approach than most people do, because you have to be careful how you position it. So if you put out a press release, yes, that information is going out there, but let's say it gets syndicated to AP, like the wire service that we use. AP is probably the most prominent one that it syndicates through.
Associated Press. Okay.
Right. That's not a feature. That's a syndication. So it's viewed differently. Now, the average person doesn't differentiate, but the media does. So if you're talking to a journalist and you're saying, hey, I was featured in the AP, they're going to look at you like you're an idiot, and they're probably going to ignore you.
Because it was syndicated.
Right, because it was syndicated, not featured. So it's all in how you position it. But the key is you can't just put out a press release and just expect magic to happen.
No.
So journalists aren't really subscribing to the wire services all that much anymore. So what I do is I'll put out a press release, but then I'll turn around and I'll build my media list, and I will directly pitch that story to journalists after the press release goes live. So I've got a nice, tight, condensed pitch, and then I'll have a link to the press release that has more information. And in doing that, you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. They're seeing the kind of enticing information in the press release, in the pitch, but then they can go to the press release right there with one click and get all of the information. And so this is something that we did with I wouldn't call it a SaaS company. It was more of a platform, slightly different. I don't know that nuance matters, but basically we were doing some publicity for a client that you know, and they had this cool platform for buying and selling properties. So I put out a press release, and then of course we pitched it to numerous outlets. But what I saw was, as we started getting organic traction, right? Journalists were doing actual editorial features. Other journalists would see both the press release and the editorial features and say, hey, there's something here. And they would just write their own articles on it, even without me pitching them or even reaching out to us. So if you take it from that perspective and yes, send out the press release, but then also directly pitch the journalists, you're going to get a lot more traction. And there's an important thing here. In fact, I talked about this at the family mini up in Jacksonville a couple weeks ago. The press releases play a role in you being cited in the LLMs. So they're looking at these major media outlets. So when your information is getting out in, whether it's through a press release or organic features, that's how the information gets into the LLMs. So if you go and you ask, ChatGPT about me, it has tons and tons of information because I'm all over the media. So press releases are a good way to make sure that you're cited in these LLMs. And this is critical today because, for the last 20 years, it's been, if you're not in Google, if you're not prominent in the search engines, then you're a ghost and you're not seen as credible. Well, now it's getting to the point where if you're not showing up prominently in these LLMs like ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity, then you have that same problem. You're not seen as credible. So those are the kind of two key reasons why I still think press releases are important today.
Yeah, I think just like you're saying, I mean, they're a good foundation, but you have to do the follow-up. The money's in the follow-up, really. And I think that's a perfect example. I mean, you're right. I think writing a press release just for a press release sake, it's not going to get you probably what it would have gotten you back in the day. But now, if you're doing that follow-up, that's really going to equal real dough for you if you're doing it effectively, et cetera, et cetera. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So then here's a couple other questions about press. So I've seen that you're getting people on some cool media, some TV stations. So give us some examples of some of the TV stations and cool shows that you've gotten people on, because I think it's pretty cool. People like to hear this.
Yeah. So, I mean, TV is a great medium. I love it because it gives you the chance to not only use your words, but also your personality, your body language, everything about you. And that's something that people can really connect with. So I like to use TV for that purpose. The key is you have to be able to communicate very effectively and very succinctly, right? You have to have it tight so that you can say exactly what you need to say, quickly, get straight to the point, but also make it something that everybody can understand. So I've got a client, for example, who I will literally never put anywhere near a TV camera. I love the guy to death. He is a great human being, incredibly intelligent, incredibly generous, just a great person all the way around. But when I schedule a 30-minute call for him, I will block out 2 hours because he's going to ramble forever.
Okay.
And so I just know that that's not his skill set, and no amount of media training is going to change that. So if you don't have that ability, then stay away from TV because you will end up looking stupid. In fact, I'll have to send you the clip later. I was on NASDAQ has a TV show, and I was on a panel with 2 other people and the host. And this girl was on there with us, and she presented herself as a media expert. But when she started talking, do you remember that old Miss America pageant when they were talking about world peace or something? And she's like, that's what it sounded like. It was terrible. It was everything in my power to just keep a straight face and not bust out laughing. I felt bad for the girl, but at the same time, it was hilarious. But
although people are laughing at her, not with her there, but I get your point.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But it's really powerful because not only this, the segment airs, but you now have that video clip that you can repurpose. You can put it on social media. You can chop it up into shorts. You can do all kinds of cool things with it. And you can really repurpose all of your publicity. But I love TV because it has the ability to really convey who you are, and that attracts the right people in and also repels out the wrong people.
Yeah, I think you got someone. I'm going to say I might be wrong here. It was on Fox or Fox News or Fox Business, I believe, and it was like, whoa! I mean, that's kind of cool. That person could repurpose it, use it for probably months or years on the website. Say, hey, I see it on Fox News or whatever. I would think that's a big thing. So, and plus, it gives you credibility, you as a press guy, because you got that person on a major media source.
Yeah, absolutely. And that all came down to a relationship. I talked earlier about how journalists reach out to me for sources. We had put him in an article. A friend of mine was writing an article about something job related. It was Darren Carr was the guy you're thinking of.
You're right. Yep.
And they needed his insight. So I set that up, got the interview all put together for them. And then another show inside of Fox Business saw that and wanted to bring him on as an expert. So they reached back out and we set that all up. Unfortunately for him, they changed the topic at the very last minute. So they were doing
thinking your feet, man. Yeah,
absolutely. And he did good. He's not a guy who's on TV all the time. So this is not second nature to him, but they had some industries that they were looking at stats for. And then at the very last minute, they changed it to different industries. So he had to scramble, pull all this information together. And then, so he's like, looking down at his notes and back up and just looks a little bit frantic.
It was the car industry, if I remember correctly. Dude, great memory. It was, anyway, sorry, keep going.
Yeah. No. But yeah, incredibly powerful. I mean, it was a show called The Big Money Show, which is a very prominent show on Fox Business. Yeah. But now he's got this clip. He can use it everywhere. It really showcases him as an expert. I mean, these shows don't ask just anybody off the street to come on.
That's exactly right. They're doing their research. You got to figure they've done a lot of research, talked to a lot of people in Darren's industry, and then all of a sudden they put him up there, and then all of a sudden, just like you're saying, all of a sudden he's the star of that industry, and he's the spokesperson for that industry. Headhunting industry in that case. But all right, we're getting ready to close up shop. So what's one thing we have not talked about that you think can add value to a business owner who's, selling widgets, who's out there trying to take their business to the next level?
Man, one of the things that we have not talked about, and in fact, you and I have not talked about this at all yet, is I just recently did a soft launch for Spartan Community. And that's basically it's basically a very low ticket community where it's like, I think we've got it set at $47 a month, right? And we're teaching a lot of the same strategies and tactics that we use in my agency, everything from PR to social media, everything across the board when it comes to marketing. We're teaching this in a private community. So that's something that we rolled out because I know there's a lot of businesses that are struggling right now, and they can't afford to hire an expert like me, to do one-on-one kind of done for you services. So this is something that we launched, and it's got not only is the education there, but it's also a whole suite of software that gives them so much leverage in their marketing. We've got a cool tool. I'll have to show this to you later, but we've got a cool tool that's tracking all of the trending topics, and then it's connecting the topics to their industry. So it's looking at whatever's trending, and let's say real estate. Now it finds a way to connect that. So for a while there, it probably has something to do with where the sports seasons fall. I'm not a sports guy, so I don't know anything about that. But there was a bunch of topics related to basketball. And so it would take I don't know, do you call it the captain of a basketball team? I don't know.
Typically, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it would take some captain of some basketball team is trending. So then it would be it would take that and connect it to kind of his approach to leadership, and it would connect that to the real estate industry and how you can use that in your business, right? So it takes these really cool trending topics that everyone's already talking about, and it connects them to your industry, and you can use that to create content. You can use it to create pitches, and it's a great way to get out there, and you leverage these trending topics. It creates exponentially more visibility than just talking about whatever you feel like talking about, right? You may have seen me doing this on X a lot lately. I've been covering the Blake Lively PR crisis, for example, and some of the stuff with Google. Hell, I've got posts on there that have over 1 million impressions, and that's using that strategy. So we've got a lot of cool tools like this. That's just one of them. I think we've got 6 different software tools in there, but all of this stuff, the education, the software, everything is all rolled into that $47 a month membership fee.
That's pretty smart for you as a business person. I mean, for people who are watching and listening, they should do something like that because it's a cheap way to learn about, press, build your business, just like what we've talked about. And we actually started a community not too long ago. It's $199 a month, but it's blown up, and it's the best thing that we've done as far as a business, because now we're helping over 800 people who are paying $199 a month. Well, some are getting it in a free version, but it's totally helping people. So that's smart because it's a low buy-in. People are going to be hopefully making a lot of money. Their returns can be unbelievable because of something like that. That's pretty awesome. Nice work. And
Thank you, man.
how do we learn about that? Where do we go for that?
If you go to community.spartanmedia.com, that's how you get there. I don't currently have a link to it from the main site, but that's going to be added shortly. We're actually in the middle of a redesign for the site.
I understand. Can you repeat that one more time?
Yes, community.spartanmedia.com.
Awesome. That's been good. We've only been doing this for 20-something minutes, 30-something minutes. I really appreciate this because this is going to add some value. The stories you have, putting Darren, on Fox. I mean, you're a good story. You really are.
Thank you,
so once again, this is Vast Voice, telling business secrets to entrepreneurs, hanging out with Jeremy Knauff. Everyone, thank you very much for taking the time to watch and listen to this. This being, again, Vast Voice, telling business secrets to entrepreneurs. Thanks, everybody.